The Zephyrian Empress Alvina glided through the orbital station's corridors with the fluid grace that had made her species legendary across 17 star systems. Her crystalline exoskeleton caught the artificial light, casting prismatic rainbows that danced along the polished walls. Today marked the signing of the most significant trade agreement in galactic history, one that would cement her empire's dominance for centuries to come. She approached the supersonic elevator that would carry her to the diplomatic levels, her retinue of advisors trailing behind in respectful silence. The Zephyrians had built this station using technology that made light-speed travel look primitive, and their elevators could traverse the massive structure's 200-kilometer height in mere seconds. As the doors whispered open, Alvina noticed a young human male inside, no more than 16 standard years old by her estimation. He wore the simple coveralls of a maintenance worker, his dark hair disheveled from what appeared to be manual labor. Tool belts hung from his waist, and his hands bore the calluses that spoke of honest work. The boy, Raffi, according to his name badge, looked up with startled brown eyes as the Empress entered. Her advisors hesitated at the threshold, uncertain whether it was proper for their sovereign to share space with a human laborer. "Your Majesty," one advisor whispered urgently in their native tongue, "perhaps we should wait for the next transport." Alvina raised one elegant hand, her bioluminescent markings pulsing once in dismissal. She had not conquered half the known galaxy by avoiding uncomfortable situations. Besides, she was curious about this young human who showed no signs of the typical awe or terror that usually accompanied her presence. The elevator began its ascent, accelerating smoothly toward supersonic speeds. Raffi shifted nervously, clutching what appeared to be a small device in his palm. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft hum of the elevator's propulsion systems. Then something went wrong. A violent shudder ran through the elevator car. Warning lights flickered to life along the walls, and an automated voice began announcing system failures in 3 different languages. The smooth acceleration became erratic, and Alvina felt her stomach lurch as gravity fluctuated wildly around them. Her advisors immediately activated their emergency communicators, chattering frantically about rescue protocols and security breaches, but Alvina's attention was fixed on the human boy, who had suddenly sprung into action. "Don't speak," Raffi said quietly, his voice cutting through the chaos with unexpected authority. "Not a word from anyone. Sound vibrations will trigger the resonance cascade." The Empress felt her translator implant processing the words, but more than that, she sensed something in the boy's tone that made her believe him instantly. There was knowledge there, deep intuitive understanding that came from growing up around machinery that others merely operated. Her advisors, however, did not have her instincts. "How dare this primitive?" one began. "Silence," Alvina commanded, her own voice barely above a whisper. Her bioluminescent patterns flared in patterns that meant absolute authority, and her retinue fell quiet immediately. Raffi was already working, his young hands moving with practiced efficiency across access panels that had opened along the elevator's walls. He pulled out tools that looked primitive compared to Zephyrian technology, yet he wielded them with the confidence of someone who understood not just how things worked, but why they worked. The elevator continued to shake, and through the transparent walls, Alvina could see they were approaching the station's central processing core, a region where a catastrophic failure could destroy not just the elevator, but potentially destabilize the entire orbital platform. Minutes passed in tense silence. Raffi worked with methodical precision, occasionally pausing to listen to sounds that seemed meaningless to everyone else, but apparently told him everything he needed to know. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the climate-controlled environment. Finally, he reached for the device in his palm, not a tool, Alvina realized, but a simple music player. With careful movements, he connected it to the elevator's control system through a series of adapters that he produced from his tool belt. The soft sound of human music began to flow through the elevator's speakers. Not the complex harmonics that Zephyrian ears preferred, but something simpler, more rhythmic. The chaotic vibrations that had been building in the elevator's superstructure began to synchronize, then gradually dampen. The shaking stopped. The warning lights faded. The elevator resumed its smooth ascent. Only then did Raffi speak again, his voice still hushed. "Harmonic resonance in the tertiary stabilizers," he explained quietly. "Dad's been dealing with this issue for weeks, but the Zephyrian engineers kept insisting their calculations were perfect. Sometimes you need to listen to what the machine is actually telling you, not what the blueprints say it should be doing." Alvina stared at this human child who had just saved potentially thousands of lives using nothing but intuition, primitive tools, and something as simple as music. Her species had conquered worlds with their advanced technology, but they had clearly missed something fundamental about the nature of engineering itself. "What is your father's name?" she asked softly. "Marcus Chen, Your Majesty. He's the Chief Maintenance Supervisor for Section 7. He'd probably be in trouble for what I just did. I'm not supposed to modify Zephyrian systems without authorization." The elevator arrived at the diplomatic level with barely a whisper of motion. As the doors opened, Alvina turned to face the young human fully. "Tell me, Raffi," she said, "how would you like a job?" Her advisors exchanged glances of confusion and concern, but Alvina had already made her decision. The trade agreement she was about to sign would bring Zephyrian technology to hundreds of worlds, but perhaps what the galaxy really needed was to learn from human ingenuity. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations had the most to learn from those they considered primitive, and sometimes the most important words anyone could hear were simply, "Don't speak." As Raffi stepped out of the elevator, still clutching his simple music player, Alvina realized that today's negotiations had become far more interesting than anyone had anticipated.